The night was unusually still over Berlin, the air thick with the smoke of war and the hum of distant artillery. In a dimly lit room deep within the Reich's intelligence headquarters, officers hunched over radios and decoding machines, their faces tense beneath the flickering light. A sudden crackle on the line caught them off guard, a series of strange encrypted transmissions unlike anything they had heard before. Was this expected? One officer whispered, eyes darting to the others. "No," another replied, voice tight. "The signals, they're not following any known pattern. It's American, but different, hidden." The room fell silent, a cold dread settling over them. Germany had conquered vast swaths of Europe. They controlled armies, supply chains, entire nations. Yet here was evidence that the Americans were moving in secret, with precision and without detection. The implications struck like a thunderclap. If this operation succeeded, it could unravel everything they had fought to build. Outside, Berlin slept, oblivious to the storm brewing behind closed doors. Civilians walked the streets, unaware that an invisible game of espionage was unfolding, a game that might decide the fate of nations. "What are they planning?" murmured a young intelligence officer, clutching a stack of intercepted messages. "Why have we not seen it coming?" No one had an answer. All they could feel was the chilling certainty that the Americans were steps ahead, orchestrating something hidden, something terrifyingly clever. As the officers scrambled to decipher the cryptic codes, one thing became horrifyingly clear: Germany was not invincible. A secret force was moving unseen, a force that could shock the Reich to its very core. And for the first time, those in the room realized they were not just fighting a war in the open fields. They were fighting a war in the shadows, far from the dim corridors of Berlin's intelligence offices. In the shadowed halls of Washington, a group of men and women pored over maps and coded reports. They moved with quiet urgency, voices low but resolute. This was the inner circle of America's top strategists, the minds behind Operation Silent Thunder, a plan so audacious that its very existence had been hidden from all but a select few. Their goal was clear: cripple Germany's supply lines without ever revealing America's hand. Colonel James Prescott traced his finger along a map, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "If we strike here, here, and here, we can disrupt their fuel and ammunition shipments for weeks. The key is precision. Any mistake and it's over." Beside him, a young intelligence agent, Anne Carlyle, tapped rapidly on a typewriter, translating intercepted German communications into actionable data. "They haven't noticed anything yet," she said, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "But there are small anomalies. Shipments delayed, patrols misdirected. It's subtle, but it's working." Meanwhile, back in Berlin, the German counterintelligence officers were piecing together these same anomalies with growing unease. Trains running late, warehouses mysteriously emptied, a sudden shortage of supplies at the front lines. They were small, seemingly isolated incidents, but collectively they suggested that something or someone was moving unseen. The officers grew restless, suspicion gnawing at their confidence. "This isn't random," muttered Major Fisher, pacing the room. "The Americans, they're planning something. But what?" The tension thickened. German leaders clung to the illusion of control. Yet every intercepted message, every misdirected convoy whispered the same terrifying truth. They were being watched, studied, and outmaneuvered. The anxiety was palpable, an invisible pressure pressing down on Berlin's war machine. Back in Washington, Prescott and his team watched the operation unfold in real time through a network of spies. Encrypted signals and carefully planted misinformation. Each successful disruption was a small victory. Each avoided detection, a testament to the meticulous planning behind Silent Thunder. For the Americans, it was a thrilling, nerve-wracking game of strategy. For the Germans, it was the first hint of a shadow moving just beyond their reach, an invisible hand that could strike with devastating precision. And in that tension, both sides began to feel it. The war was no longer just fought on battlefields and city streets. Somewhere in the shadows, a secret war had begun, one that would shock Germany to its very core. The hum of typewriters and the clatter of Morse code filled the hidden rooms of Allied intelligence offices. Every sound was deliberate, every action calculated. Operation Silent Thunder was no ordinary plan. It was a labyrinth of deception, coded signals, and intricate logistics designed to mask the Americans' true intentions. To outsiders, nothing appeared unusual. Convoys moved. Communications flowed, but behind the scenes, a war within a war was being waged. Lieutenant Marcus Hale reviewed the latest dispatch, his brow furrowed. "We've rerouted the shipments through minor towns. The Germans will see movement, but they'll never trace it back to us," he explained, pointing to the map spread across the table. Each route, each timing, was calculated to perfection. Every delay, every misdirection is part of the plan. It's like a shadow moving through the city without ever touching the light. Even as the Americans orchestrated their strategy, Germany's intelligence officers sensed something amiss. Major Fisher and his team studied the latest reports, confusion etched on their faces. A train carrying fuel had inexplicably disappeared from the schedules. Supplies intended for the front line were diverted, leaving officers scrambling to cover the gaps. "It's clever," Fisher admitted reluctantly. "But what are they planning?" In the American offices, courage and ingenuity were the currency of survival. Agents like Anne Carlisle risked capture daily, delivering misinformation to German contacts and ensuring that the coded messages remained unbroken. Every intercepted telegram, every forged document had to withstand scrutiny from the enemy. A single misstep could reveal the operation. Yet the team moved with confidence, fueled by discipline and determination. Suspense hung over every moment. One night, a German patrol nearly intercepted a shipment intended to be rerouted to a secret depot in northern France. Hale's stomach tightened as he waited for confirmation. When the Americans finally received the all-clear signal, relief washed over him, quickly replaced by renewed focus. The operation had been preserved, the plan intact, but the risk was ever present. Meanwhile, in Berlin, officers debated in hushed tones, the tension between pride and paranoia growing. The Americans' ability to remain invisible while striking repeatedly was infuriating. Every small victory, they claimed, came with mounting fear. If the Allies could hide so effectively, what else were they capable of? As the days turned into weeks, the operation gained momentum. Convoys vanished, communications broke down, and the Germans were left chasing shadows. The Americans watched, calculated, and adapted. They were not merely executing a plan. They were playing a dangerous, high-stakes game of chess, each move measured and precise. By now, the viewers understand the stakes, a secret war hidden in plain sight. A battle of wits where courage, ingenuity, and precision determined life or death. Germany remained blind to the full scope of what was coming, teetering on the edge of a revelation that could shatter confidence and ignite chaos. In the shadows, the Americans continued their meticulous orchestration, preparing for the moment when their invisible hand would strike, and the world would witness the true power of Operation Silent Thunder. At dawn, a tense silence settled over the European countryside, broken only by the distant rumble of engines and the flutter of wings. Somewhere high above the forests and farmlands, American bombers sliced through the gray morning sky, their mission clear, their purpose hidden from all but a handful of commanders. Operation Silent Thunder had begun. In Berlin, Major Fisher sipped his morning coffee, oblivious to the chaos that was about to erupt. His office, once a hub of confident command, now felt fragile, as if the walls themselves could not withstand the coming storm. Reports of minor disruptions had already unnerved him, but nothing could prepare the Reich for the full magnitude of the assault. At precisely 0600 hours, the first strike hit. Fuel depots in northern France erupted in fiery explosions, sending plumes of smoke into the sky that could be seen for miles. Supply convoys that had traveled hundreds of kilometers vanished in confusion, ambushed at key points where the Americans had planted saboteurs days before. Rail lines buckled under expertly placed explosives, cutting off essential routes to the front. Every strike was precise, surgical, designed to cripple German operations without leaving evidence of American involvement. Lieutenant Marcus Hale watched the feeds from a hidden control center, heart pounding. "Targets confirmed," he whispered. "Proceed to secondary objectives." The team moved in near silence, slipping behind enemy lines to disable communications hubs, intercept messages, and sabotage key equipment. Each action was a gamble. One misstep could expose the entire operation, but the meticulous planning ensured almost perfect execution. Back in Berlin, chaos spread like wildfire. Alarms blared as officers scrambled to reroute shipments, re-rig logistics, and maintain control. Major Fisher barked orders, his voice tight with panic. "Get reconnaissance teams out! Find out where this is coming from." But the Americans had covered every trace. Every misdirection, every false lead kept German forces blind to the real threat. In small towns along the occupied routes, civilians awoke to the terrifying spectacle of explosions, burning trains, and frantic soldiers. Yet no one could see the invisible hand orchestrating the chaos. From the skies to the railways, from the warehouses to the communication lines, silent thunder moved like a ghost, swift, precise, and untouchable. The tension reached its peak when a German convoy, expected to reinforce a critical front, vanished entirely. Panic spread among commanders as the Allies struck again, this time targeting a communications hub that linked Berlin to multiple occupied territories. Radios went silent. Messages bounced back undelivered. The Reich, confident for years in its dominance, was now in disarray. For the Americans, the operation was a delicate balance of adrenaline and precision. Each successful strike brought exhilaration, but the threat of discovery lingered like a shadow. Hale exhaled sharply as the final targets were secured. Victory was near, but the risk had been immense. One wrong calculation, and the entire mission could have failed. By nightfall, the scope of the operation became clear. German supply lines lay in ruins. Communication networks crippled, and officers struggled to comprehend the speed and effectiveness of the assault. The invisible hand of Operation Silent Thunder had struck decisively, leaving Germany shocked, vulnerable, and reeling. Yet even in triumph, the Americans remained cautious. They knew the war was far from over, and the Germans would not remain idle for long. The battle had moved into a new dimension, one of shadows, strategy and secrecy, and in this hidden war, the outcome was only just beginning to reveal itself. The morning after the strikes, Berlin was a city teetering on the edge of panic. Smoke from distant depots drifted over the skyline, a silent reminder that the Reich's control was slipping. Inside the Reich's high command, officers moved like shadows, their confident facades crumbling with every incoming report. Major Fisher slammed a report onto the polished oak table, hands trembling. "Supply lines are down, fuel depots destroyed, communication hubs offline. The Americans, they've hit everywhere at once." His voice cracked with disbelief. Around him, other officers exchanged grim glances. The realization settling in like a cold fog. Germany was no longer in full control. Outside the walls of power, ordinary citizens began to feel the ripples of chaos. Street markets reported shortages of fuel and food. Trains were delayed, trucks failed to arrive, and soldiers appeared anxious, their usual precision replaced with confusion. Rumors spread like wildfire. "Have you noticed the shortages?" whispered a baker to his neighbor. "The army!" They seemed lost, yet none understood that it was not mere mismanagement. It was the invisible hand of Operation Silent Thunder reshaping the course of the war. Meanwhile, in hidden Allied command rooms, the mood was starkly different. Lieutenant Marcus Hale and Anne Carlyle allowed themselves a rare moment of relief, eyes scanning the reports with satisfaction. "Every target hit," Hale said quietly. "They don't know what's coming next." Their small victories were exhilarating, proof that courage and careful planning could outmaneuver even the most formidable enemy. But even as they celebrated, the Americans knew the operation's success was fragile. One slip could unravel weeks of careful orchestration. Back in Berlin, fear had begun to overtake pride. Officers debated frantically over contingency plans, often contradicting one another, each suggestion more desperate than the last. The American strikes had not only destroyed infrastructure, they had shaken the psychological core of Germany's command. Confidence that had once seemed unshakable was now replaced by suspicion and dread. In the streets, in the offices, and in the war rooms, the effects of the hidden operation were impossible to ignore. The Germans struggled to comprehend the scale and precision of the disruption, while the Americans quietly acknowledged the power of secrecy, courage, and ingenuity. For a moment, the war had shifted, silently, invisibly, and decisively, in favor of those who moved in the shadows, and as night fell over Berlin, the city that had once believed itself untouchable now lay in uneasy suspense. Its leaders haunted by the realization that they were facing an enemy capable of striking unseen at any moment and from any direction. The shock had begun, and the full story of Operation Silent Thunder was only just starting to unfold. Years after the war, long after the smoke had cleared and Europe began to rebuild, the full story of Operation Silent Thunder emerged from the shadows. Declassified files, hidden diaries, and interviews with surviving operatives revealed a level of precision and secrecy that had stunned historians and strategists alike. The Americans had orchestrated a series of strikes so meticulously planned that Germany had been unaware of the operation until decades later. Colonel James Prescott's handwritten notes, preserved in the National Archives, described a campaign of intelligence, deception, and courage. Every shipment rerouted, every depot sabotaged, every code broken and rewritten had been executed with unwavering discipline. Agents like Anne Carlisle risked everything, infiltrating occupied territories, planting misinformation, and ensuring that not a single trace betrayed the operation's origin. Their bravery was quiet, unseen by the public, yet it had altered the course of the war. Interviews with German officers who had survived the Blitz revealed a lingering sense of disbelief. "We knew something was off," one recalled, voice still heavy with frustration decades later. "But we could never grasp what had happened. It was as if the Americans moved in the shadows, striking without warning and disappearing before we even knew where to look." The post-war revelations left the world in awe, not only of the strategic genius behind Silent Thunder, but of the courage required to execute it. Ordinary men and women had become the architects of a hidden war, their actions invisible to millions, yet devastating in effect. Through careful planning, courage, and unwavering resolve, the Americans had achieved what Germany never suspected, a silent, unseen disruption that reshaped the battlefield without a single public declaration. The operation's success was a testament to the power of intelligence, secrecy, and human ingenuity, and it served as a reminder that even in the darkest moments of war, the smallest actions could echo across nations. The full story, once hidden in shadow, now emerged, a chronicle of suspense, strategy, and heroism that had remained invisible for decades. It was a revelation that shocked the world, and for those who had carried out the operation, a quiet vindication of years spent moving unseen, yet shaping history in ways no one could have imagined.